this would happen.
Come on, Doctor.
Where the
Help us out here.
No sign of Roth and Lara.
Jonah! I'm here!
Tomb Raider was released on March 5th in 2013 on Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. It was subsequently remastered and re-released for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on January 28, 2014. Tomb Raider was developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix. The following review is based on the remastered version for the PlayStation 4 titled Tomb Raider: The Definitive Edition. Tomb Raider begins with Lara Croft aboard a ship called Endurance, along with her fellow crewmates. Together, they are part of a crew working on a television show or television special, much like we see today on the History Channel or on the Discovery Channel. Their intention is to find the lost kingdom of Yamatai, and as resources begin to dwindle to a dangerous low and they have yet to find anything, Laura and Dr. Whitman, the celebrity archaeologist, are faced with two options. Ultimately, Lara wins out, and they head towards the Dragon's Triangle, which is described to make the Bermuda Triangle look like child's play. As they near it, a violent storm hits and the ship is snapped in half. The crew makes it ashore and they're separated from one another. Lying chin deep in sand, Lara sees some of her crewmates and friends and tries to call out to them, yelling over the crashing of the waves and cracking of the thunder. Without any luck, she's then hit and blacks out. Lara wakes up hanging in a cave upside down. She escapes the cave and eventually regroups with Dr. Whitman, but as they set out to find the others, the enemy reveals themselves, a violent cult known as the Solari. With the Solari having taken her friends hostage and a curse that prevents anyone from leaving the island, it's up to Lara to investigate the curse and save her friends. The game serves as a reboot to the long-running Tomb Raider series, which means you don't have to have prior knowledge about any Tomb Raider game to play this one. That being said, this is my first ever Tomb Raider game. The story is straightforward without much confusion to be had. The story is like Indiana Jones or Uncharted in that the main character goes looking for something, finds it, and then realizes there's a lot more to it than they expected. Because this is a reboot, there's a lot to be said about Lara because this is technically her introduction, and there tends to be a paradox throughout the beginning of the game. Lara has never killed before, up until the point where one of the Solari tries to rape her. It's a pretty crazy scene, and afterwards she talks to her mentor saying that she killed him and she's never killed before and that it was too easy to take a life. But then almost immediately when encountered with more of the Solari, or the player, can basically kill people with headshots, guns, set on fire, blown up, and this tender moment of like, it was so easy to take a life, is thrown right out the window. Yeah, I mean, it must be easy to take a life considering you're fucking blowing up people without comment.
I always find
Она тоже была порабощена стерва.
Oh, God!
Are you okay?
Oh, God. Roth, I'm in trouble. They're killing people.
What? Who?
Men. I don't know why. I had to kill some of them. I had no choice.
That can't have been easy.
It's scary just how easy it was. You've got to warn the others, Roth.
Don't worry about them right now. You just do whatever it takes to get to me, Lara.
I'm coming for you!
Towards the end, there's also a weird little supernatural twist to the story that you see coming from the beginning of the game. The game essentially begins with a hint that there's something more to this island, so like it didn't surprise anyone when that twist came. That's all there really is to say about it. It's straightforward and there's no room for comment. It is what it is, and there weren't any thematic moments that taught me a lesson for my real life, or made me have some sort of existential crisis. The characters aren't that special either. Your crewmates appear and disappear as your adventure goes on. They do have personalities, but they aren't enough to be memorable. Once they leave your sight, you forget all about them, which is the complete opposite of what Lara feels. Lara has them in mind all the time. What about my friends? What about Sam? What about Roth? The two biggest side characters that are important to her are Roth and Sam. Roth is this rugged Englishman that was apparently close to Lara's father, and he's basically a mentor to her. He'll support you once in the game and in one cutscene, but that's really about it. He'll say things that Lara will remember, but nothing in the game makes me really want to know their history. He's an army guy that shoots guns and saved our hero once. Ooh, wow. Sam, on the other hand, is Lara's best friend, and she too doesn't have any evidence of that. The entire game is basically a cat and mouse chase of someone takes Sam, Lara goes after them, Lara gets Sam, Sam gets taken again, and so on and so forth. Their conversations with each other are super flat. Sam clearly supports her, but Lara has this deep feeling for Sam, and I can't see why. What makes Sam so special? What makes Roth so special? I don't know. The villain is Matthias, who is just basically your run-of-the-mill cult leader. He did get interesting towards the end, but that wasn't enough. All cult leader characters get interesting at the end of their story. Matthias was no different. Roth's character has been done before this game, and his name is Sully from Uncharted. Sully is Nathan Drake's mentor, and at least those two have some sort of chemistry, and will recall moments from the past to prove their current relationship. Matthias is a cult leader character in Tomb Raider has been done before this game, and his name is Lord Sadler from Resident Evil 4. Both are essentially gone from the main character's main journey most of the time, and usually only make tiny appearances, but at least Lord Sadler had some back and forth with the main character, and when he did make an appearance, it was extremely significant. Of course, Lara Croft takes the cake in this cast of not so colorful characters, simply because you spend the most time with her, and as you play as her, you can hear her little side comments and thoughts. I can easily say that her role has been filled by Nathan Drake in her absence. But I actually prefer Lara over Nathan because sure, Nathan Drake sounds like a fun, cool guy who's probably killed more men than any serial killer in United States history combined. But Lara is down to earth and she's always terrified. Lara's biggest negative is that the beginning that I mentioned before. She feels awful even after killing some piece of shit rapist, but she feels awful because she took a life. And then after that, it doesn't matter anymore. The game tried to show that killing is bad, but then lets you murder and stab and devastate enemies in ridiculous ways. However, there is a case to be made for that negative as well. In Nathan Drake's case, you can't say he's used to killing. He's just a fun guy. Drake is essentially a mass murderer. He'll kill hundreds of guys and then crack a joke and a beer at the end of the day. In Lara Croft's case, she's stuck on this island. She looked for adventure and got something totally unexpected, and on top of some angry Japanese lady with a curse, she's stuck with a cult full of guys that haven't seen civilization in quite some time. She has no choice but to kill him, because it's either her or them. She may be killing with ease, but she takes no pleasure in it and doesn't crack jokes at the end of the day. Something I actually really liked. Plus, she's scared, and it shows. When she's thinking aloud or yelling someone's name, she's just not scared about herself, but scared for others as well. And yet, in that fear, she acts. To bring up that unnecessary comparison again, she screams for her life when she's falling off a ruin that's falling down on her, you know? Drake, on the other hand, goes, "Oh no, no, no! Oh no, no, no!" Is something I say when I drop a slice of pizza, not when a ship is about to explode with me in it. So even with that in the back of my mind, Lara Croft is almost inspirational. Almost. Another negative with Lara is that she's got no personality. There's nothing that really says, yes, this is Lara Croft. She's fucking intelligent, and she can handle herself better than any of us in real life ever could. But everyone has that one thing that makes us who we are. When she talks or partakes in a conversation, there's no essence of Lara in there. However, even with that said, you could also say that if you were stuck on an island like her with killer cult soldiers, you'd probably be serious the entire time too. Anyways, moving on to visuals. The visuals are good. They don't hold up as well as I wish they did, even on my PS4 Pro. But this game did originally release in 2013. The character models are kind of iffy, but they deliver where they matter. And what I mean by that is that Lara looks fucking great. You can see the emotions on her face. You can see the toll this adventure is taking on her. However, once in a while she gets these like blank eyes like everyone else tends to have. These eyes that are like super jarring to look at, because it's almost like, are you human, or is this just a robot that I'm looking at with like a synthetic body? The environment looks decent too. No complaints, no praise. The audio part of the game is good too. The guns sound like they should. The environment makes the sound it should make when the wood is falling apart under you. It cracks like it should. The voice acting is decent. There were times when something sounded off, but for the most part, I mean, it was pretty on point. All in all, the audio is decent. No complaints, but definitely no high praises. Much like everything else I've said, the gameplay follows that pattern. It's not great, but it's far from bad. The game is an action-adventure game with puzzles throughout the world. Lara is equipped with a bow and arrow, a handgun, an assault rifle, and a shotgun. As you explore the world, you can pick up salvage, which you then use to upgrade your weapons. There are also weapon pieces that lead to the next iteration of the weapon. For example, you'll first pick up this old-ass World War II machine gun, but with enough gun pieces, you'll have somehow transformed that weapon into an AK-47. And with salvage, you can also upgrade the rate of fire. You can put a silencer, increase the clip size, and these upgrades are simple and are permanent. Once you increase like the rate of fire on that World War II rifle, the rate of fire is increased even when it somehow becomes an AK-47. The combat sequences are definitely like Uncharted in that there's always these small areas where you can move freely cover to cover, jump up and down obstacles, and kill your enemies with whatever weapon you so choose. Your enemies follow a pattern as well. They'll swarm you in waves, and there will be different types of them. Shielded melee enemies, machine gun enemies, and bow and arrow enemies. But outside of combat, there is a little bit of free roam, where you can essentially either go straight to the next objective or explore the area you're in. Sometimes you'll stumble upon hidden tombs, and you can find out more about the history of the island by completing an environmental puzzle. These are side missions that reward you with salvage and other little collectibles. The problem I had with these is that I never felt the want to go to do, I never wanted to go do these tombs. I never felt the want nor the need. I would wander in, solve them, and then go back to the story, but towards the end of the game, when I did find them, or did stumble upon them, I would just leave because they weren't worth it. The rewards didn't justify the means. I looted every body I dropped, so I had no need for more salvage. And since I primarily used the bow and arrow, I didn't feel the need to get upgrade parts, especially when upgrade parts can still be found by playing the story missions. The tombs just felt mostly just a reason to get that 100% completion rate, rather than a fun part of the gameplay. There are collectibles in this game, and while I love a great narrative and then finding out, those little hidden bits about that narrative, the game's collectibles were just flat out boring. You could find journals scattered throughout the world written by characters you may or may have not run into. And these journals are like, imagine the world's most boring person ever. Now pretend you found their journal and read it. Sure, now you know a little bit about them, but that still doesn't change the fact that they're the most boring person you've ever met. That's how I felt about these journals. I don't care enough about any of the characters to really care about these journal entries. Other collectibles include artifacts that you can inspect, and Lara will make a comment about them. That was actually pretty cool, but because I'm not a major in anthropology, ancient Chinese history, or archaeology, everything she said were basically throwaway lines. Well, this is from the 15th century. Royalty would use this to shave the toes. Every time I would just honestly look at the screen dumbfounded and move on like, alright, wow, I don't care. I don't care what they used to shave their toes or what they used as plaque. Like, I really don't care. Even in the main story, there's a few moments where you have to solve a tiny environmental puzzle, like open this, shoot that, pull this to open the next door. They weren't super easy to the point where it was annoying, but they weren't super challenging to the point where my brain was melting. So the story environmental puzzles were nice, and they were here and there. I like them. But that's basically the gameplay. You jump and climb to your next objective, shoot a few baddies, jump and climb to your next objective. Occasionally there were some quick time events or running from danger events, like this one boat is up super high and it was like used as a base, but the cables holding it up are shot and then the ship starts falling apart as you're on it, so you have to try to escape. There's a few moments like those, but they feel really familiar. Let's just say those kinds of things have been done better in Uncharted territory. All in all, Tomb Raider is basically when you order that cheeseburger from the dollar menu at McDonald's. If you're super hungry, it'll do the job. But you don't order that expecting the greatest burger of all time. But it won't make you puke either. Tomb Raider is like the standard for average. The story is simple and to the point, the characters are okay, the audio and visuals are decent, and that's playing on the PS4 Pro Definitive Edition. The gameplay is good too. My problem with Tomb Raider is that everything feels familiar, and whatever this game does, another game has already done better. Uncharted has had better stories with batshit crazy endings. Uncharted had better chemistry between its characters. Uncharted had better, oh my god, the shit's collapsing moments. Assassin's Creed has had better looking climbing. Red Dead Redemption, the shooting in Red Dead Redemption feels a lot more satisfying. Lara Croft may have dominated as the action-adventure icon back in the PS1, PS2 era, whatever, but others have come and have refined it since. The Definitive Edition offers a steady frame rate and all the DLC outfits, but I've seen my brother play the entire game on the PlayStation 3, and there seems to be hardly any difference. So my recommendation is that if visuals don't matter and you happen to be content with the older generation, is that this game is probably worth it if you like action-adventure games, especially for the price you'll likely get it at. Now, if visuals are important to you and you own a newer console such as the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I got this game on a flash sale on PlayStation Network for $10. And if you can find it for that price, I'd say it's worth checking out if something like this interests you. This game won't blow your mind or change your video game life forever, but it's something to play that isn't bad. So with that being said, for me, Tomb Raider gets a 6.5.
Whatever's coming, we'll get through it, eh?
Out of 10.
We've got our own people to worry about. We'll need to regroup as soon as they find Sam.
I can't just leave him out there alone. I need to get to him.
Sometimes you've got to make sacrifices, Lara. You can't save everyone.
I know about sacrifices.
No, you know about loss. Sacrifice is a choice you make. Loss is a choice made for you.
I can't choose to let him die, Roth.